Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschat Deshtarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 3, chapter entitled Liberation from the Illusory Energy, text 31. Smarantaha Smarayantaha Cha Mithaha Agha Ogha Haram Harim Bhaktya Sanjataya Bhaktya Bibhrati Utpulakam Tanum Smaranta Smarayantascha Mitho Ghogha Haram Harim Bhaktya Sanjataya Bhaktya Bibhrati Utpulakam Tanum Smaranta Smarayantascha Mitho Ghauga Haram Harim Bhaktya Sanjataya Bhaktya Bibhrati Utpulakam Tanum Smaranta Smarayantascha Mitho Ghoga Haram Harim Bhaktya Sanjataya Bhaktya Bibhrati Utpulakam Tanum Matajis. Smarantaha, remembering, smarayantascha, and reminding, mithaha, one another, agha ogha haram, who takes away everything, inauspicious, from the devotee. Harim, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhaktya, by devotion. Sanjataya, awakened. Bhaktya, by devotion. Bibhrati, possess. Utpulakam, agitated by. Ecstasy. Tanum, body. Translation and purport by disciples of His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The devotees of the Lord constantly discuss the glories of the Personality of Godhead among themselves. Thus, they constantly remember the Lord and remind one another of His qualities and pastimes. In this way, by their devotion to the principles of bhakti-yoga, the devotees please the Personality of Godhead, who takes away from them everything inauspicious. Being purified of all impediments, the devotees awaken to pure love of Godhead, and thus, even within this world, their spiritualized bodies exhibit symptoms of transcendental ecstasy, such as standing of the bodily hairs on end. Purport. The word agha ogha haram is very significant in this verse. Agha refers to that which is inauspicious or sinful. The living entity is actually Satchidananda Vigraha, or eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. But by neglecting his eternal relationship with Krishna, the Personality of Godhead, he commits sinful activities and undergoes the inauspicious result in the form of material suffering. The chain of sinful reactions is called ogha, or a relentless wave of suffering. Krishna is agha ogha harim. He takes away the sinful reactions of his devotees, who are thus entitled to experience the inconceivable bliss of the kingdom of God, even while remaining in this world. The words bhaktya, sanjataya bhaktya indicate that there are two divisions of bhakti-yoga, sadhana bhakti and raganuga bhakti. Srila Prabhupada has elaborately explained in his book, The Nectar of Devotion, the progress of the devotee from sadhana bhakti, or the execution of regulatory principles, to raganuga bhakti, or service executed in love of Godhead. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, a liberated soul is always enthusiastic due to the appearance of transcendental ecstasy within his body. Thus he always aspires to remain overwhelmed in chanting the glories of the Personality of Godhead, Hare. So this is a beautiful section in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 29, 30, 31st verses of the 3rd chapter of the 11th canto, which describes about how one can become free from the influence of material miseries, which is the original question put forward by Maharaj Nimi. And then in response, Shri Antariksha, who is one of the 9 Yogendras, is replying to this. So before we come to this verse, I'd like to just briefly touch upon the previous 2 verses to give you an understanding and connection. 29th verse referred to Evam Krishnatmanatheshu Manushyeshu cha Sauhridam Paricharyam cha Ubhayatra Mahatsu Nrishu Sadhushu. So this particular verse, it outlines what is the gateway to become free from suffering and misery. And it is described by Shri Antariksha in this verse. The first principle is Evam Krishnatmanatheshu. One must accept Krishna as one's Nath. So various acharyas have given various interpretations to this, but all of them agree that one who accepts Krishna as his Nath. Shri Radharaman Goswami, he says, most of the souls consider that they are Dehanath. that they are the controller and the lord of their body. And to some extent it may be true, but there is only one Atmanath, and that is Krishna. So Krishna Atmanatheshu, one who is the lord of the soul, one who accepts Krishna as the lord of one's soul, Manushyeshu cha, such a devotee. Towards such devotees cha sauhridam. So we should develop friendship. We should develop friendship towards those who accept Krishna as the Lord. And second, beyond friendship we must go to the level of service and intimacy to those who are paricharyam cha ubhayatra mahatsu nrishu sadhushu. Those who accept Krishna as the Supreme Lord and those who are practicing the process and have achieved perfection. So therefore, paricharyam refers to worship, service, to develop feelings intimately, ubhayatra towards both Krishna and Krishna's advanced devotees who are mahatsu sadhushu. Those who are superior to us and those who are mahatmas, those who have dedicated their lives and realized the glories of Krishna. So that is described here. Sridhar Swami explains that this Ubhayatra refers to moving and non-moving entities, and amongst them those who are Nrishu, human beings, are to be respected more. And then amongst human beings, sadhushu, those who follow religious principles, must be respected more. And amongst them, mahatsu, one who has actually realized the glories of Krishna, who is a Mahatma, must be served. Chakravarti Pad gives his commentary by saying that one who offers special affection to Krishna as master, Krishnatmanatheshu. And then he says, one who serves the Supreme Lord and the devotees respectfully, offering them respect and offering other living entities appropriate dealings, like that. And Vallabhacharya, he says, one must serve the Lord and the devotees, but we must especially serve the devotees. Shripad Vijayadhwaja Tirth, he says that this means we must develop friendship with human beings who accept Krishna as their master, but we must serve the Bhagavan and Bhagavata, those who are the Bhagavatas and those who are better than us. So all of these various acharyas, and then Sudarshan Suri, he says, one who accepts Krishna as the master and guided by the scriptures, he must be accepted as a friend, sauhridam. And paricharya, one must serve the others. How? By not criticizing and envying them, and specially serve the mahatsu or the mahatmas. So basically the idea of all of these different acharyas' commentary is practically the same, that the first step in the process of becoming purified is we must intimately serve the great souls, mahatsu, nrishu, sadhushu. And we must have friendship, sauhridam, towards evam Krishna atmanatheshu, those who accept Krishna as Lord, in the sense that we must make distinction between different grades of devotees and appropriately increase our relationship with those who are more advanced. And then with such devotees who are more intimately connected to Krishna, who have realized Krishna, what we must do with them. The next verse describes Parasparanu Kathanam Pavanam Bhagavat Yasha Mitharati Mithatushti Nivrita Mitha Atmana. In such association of devotees, our true spiritual devotional aspirations are created and enhanced. So what we must do? What should be the attitude in such an association? Parasparanu kathanam. So for this, Sridhar Swami and some of the other commentators, they explain this means without having sense of competition and rivalry with other devotees and being detached from false ego. Parasparanu kathanam. And what we must do, what should be the action? Pavanam Bhagavat Yasha. We should try to explain the meanings of the Lord's words given in scripture. So there must be speaking of Krishna Katha, hearing of Krishna Katha in such association. It must be Bhagavat Yasha. And that Bhagavat Yasha is described as Pavanam. So Shripad Vallabhacharya explains that Pavanam here refers to the fact that the Supreme Lord's glories are themselves so purifying that even if one does not have the privilege of taking bath, still the Lord's glories purify one, which is not to prevent one from taking bath, which is not to discourage bathing, but the power of the transcendental sound vibration is such that it purifies the heart. Srila Saraswati Thakur in the Gaudiya Math, they had one brahmachari who used to take bath 6 to 8 times a day. And then Saraswati Thakur was giving a class and he was not there, this brahmachari. So after the lecture, Saraswati Thakur went to him and he was still bathing. So Saraswati Thakur told him, the Yuga Dharma is chanting, not bathing. So we have to follow all the principles of cleanliness of the body, but then for cleansing the soul, this is what becomes the most effective method, and that's what is described here. So when we do this parasparanu kathanam, when we discuss with each other after having established the right attitude and relationship, then pavanam bhagavat yasha, then the purified transcendental sound vibration has an impact upon the heart. And what is the experience? Mitha rati. Both the speaker and the hearer experience rati, attraction or love. Second, mitha tushti. Both experience satisfaction. And third, nivritta mitha atmana, and being freed from all kinds of influences. Then we can actually experience freedom from misery. So nivritta mitha means mutual detachment from misery. And how this mutual detachment from misery is experienced? Param drishtva nivartate. When one experiences a higher taste, rati and tushti, then automatically nivritti mitha atmanah. So in this way, this particular verse is a very important verse which actually explains the process by which one can remain in this world but still overcome the influence of negative experiences of Adidaivik, Adibhautik and Adhyatmik kleshas. So misery is compulsory but suffering is optional. And therefore when we engage in this mutual discussion of Harikatha, then mitha rati, mitha tushti, because practically everyone has come to Krishna consciousness to experience that higher taste and satisfaction. Prabhupada was on a morning walk and there were a group of devotees around him, and Prabhupada just asked a question. Why is Krishna the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So one devotee immediately responded, because in Gita it is declared, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. Prabhupada said, oh, it's only a book. Then someone said, because Prabhupada, you declare it. So Prabhupada said, I am an old man. I keep saying so many things. So then devotees were bewildered. They didn't know what to say. Then Prabhupada said, because when we practice the process, and then when we engage in the activities of Krishna consciousness, pratyakshaavagamam, we actually experience the transformation. We experience satisfaction, we experience the joy. So then devotees nodded their head. And then Prabhupada was in Philadelphia, he was on a morning walk a couple of years later. And then on that morning walk, again Prabhupada asked the question, why is Krishna the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So the interesting thing is, one devotee was there in this walk who was in the previous walk. So when he heard this question, he thought, this is a great chance for me to show my other devotees how I know the answer. So immediately he said, Srila Prabhupada, because when we practice the process, we experience that joy. And then we realize Krishna is there. And all the devotees were looking at him, wondering, this is like out of the box answer. Prabhupada turned to him and said, no, because Bhagavad Gita says. So therefore the Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, they are the check and balance. Whatever we experience as part of our practice of Krishna consciousness is based on Shastra. And then when we practice the Shastra properly, then we also go through that experience. And then when we go through a certain experience, we have the privilege of again confirming whether it is as per Shastra or not. Kiba mantra dila gosai kiba tarabal japite japite hoila pagal. Mahaprabhu, when he started chanting, he started feeling symptoms of ecstasy. His hair started standing on end. There were tears from his eyes. So he went to his Guru Ishwar Puri and said, what mantra you have given me? What is the power of this mantra? Japite japite hoila pagal. As I am chanting, I am becoming mad. Right? That was Mahaprabhu's problem after getting initiation. That why I am feeling so much ecstasy. Right? Our question is opposite. Why I am feeling so sleepy? Mahaprabhu was asking why I am feeling so much ecstasy. So Prabhupada writes in that purport. So Mahaprabhu is such a ideal disciple that whenever in doubt, he wants to confirm, to make sure that he is on the right track. So therefore, this whole idea of mithaharati mitha tushti nivritta, this is the process by discussing Harikatha. So now it is described that even for those who have developed rati, so Sripad Vallabhacharya gave this connection between the Parasparanukathanam verse, 30th verse and the 31st verse, that even those who have developed rati, the minds can sway to other objects and one can forget. Initially we thought that when we come to Krishna consciousness, but just by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra a few years, mind will become completely focused, absorbed and run towards Krishna. Right? And then we spend 5 years, 10 years, 15 years and we are still waiting when it will run towards Krishna. And then the question arises, why is it running away from Krishna? So therefore, it is possible that even for those who have developed some taste, just because one has developed a taste does not mean that it is going to remain permanent. And therefore the pastime of Bharat Maharaj comes in the 5th canto. Bharat Maharaj is described as Mahabhagavata. Even at the stage of Mahabhagavat, because he lacked the association of devotees, he got distracted. So therefore, the whole process of purification happens through Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan, by glorifying and experiencing the glories of Krishna as supremely greater than our own individual insignificant, falsely imagined glories of the false ego. And then when both of us, both devotees or the association of devotees gets absorbed in this activity, we experience a higher taste. But just because we experience the higher taste, we cannot become complacent thinking that I can now avoid the association of devotees for a few months because now I am there. I've already reached that platform. No. The devotee's consciousness is so fragile. The jiva by nature can be overwhelmed by material energy anytime. We constantly need the association of devotees, and that is emphasized in this verse. Smaranta smarayantascha mitho. That the devotees, by seeking other devotee, we remember Krishna. And many people have experienced that, they are in the outside world doing something and they are just unable to remember Krishna, and suddenly they see some devotee and they immediately are reminded. Even outside people who are nothing to do with Krishna consciousness, when they see devotee, they immediately remember Krishna. Right? One devotee was distributing books in the mall, and he was being chased by this policeman, and he went trying to hide from him, went through one section of the mall, went to another section and another section and another section, and the security guard was just following him and chasing him. And then he went faster and faster. He thought, let me run away. He couldn't find the right staircase to come down. He was going up and up in the mall. And then finally he got trapped in one corner, and this guard was right in front of him. And he thought, now I'm finished. He's going to take away my books, find me, this, that. And the guard said, I want books from you. I'm searching for you. Why are you running away? So we may not even realize some people are actually searching for the Lord, running to find where we can. Just by seeing the devotees, people are reminded. I was driving once in a car, and then, we passed a certain signal. It was, proper. We didn't break the signal or whatever. But there was a policeman standing across, and he blew on the whistle and stopped us. And I was bewildered. I asked the driver, we followed the rules, why is he stopping us? We don't know. Maybe he wants a bribe or something. So immediately he came to me. So I rolled the window down and said, Maharaj, Prasad, Hare Krishna. So as soon as he is seeing Hare Krishna, he is remembering Krishna's Prasad. So as soon as we see a devotee, we remember Krishna. So that is called Smaranta. In the association of devotees, we remember Krishna. And then the more important thing is, we help the devotees remember Krishna. Smarayantascha. So by seeing devotees, we remember. And then the devotees, they help us remember Krishna. Smarayantascha. And as a result of this, mitha agha ogha haram harim. And in that association, when we start remembering Krishna, agha ogha, the influence of sin, agha. So therefore, what does the Purana say? Smartavyam satatam Vishnu, vismartavyam najatak. Sarve vidhi nishedasyur. So what is the topmost rule? The topmost rule is always remember Krishna. And what is the topmost prohibition? Never forget Krishna. So therefore, the previous verse is describing about the topmost rule, how devotees, they remember Krishna. And then this verse is describing how in the association of devotees, when we see a devotee, then the devotees help us never to forget Krishna. Mitha agha ogha haram harim. So all the prohibitions are servant of this main prohibition, never forget Krishna. And therefore, when we forget Krishna, then our activities of sin begin. And then the process of counteracting those sins is very complex. and which is also possible. Ajamil pastime and all that describe in great detail how it can be done. The counteraction can be done. It is called nirharam, nishkritam. All of those words are used in the 6th canto. But smaranta smarayantascha, when the devotees help us remember Krishna just by their presence, or smarayantascha, help us remember Krishna through their words. Because we may be in the association of devotees, but material energy may overwhelm us so much that even in that association we are with the devotees, but our attitude is not devotional. We are not thinking about Krishna. Then the devotees speak the appropriate words by which remembrance of Krishna is again triggered. Smarayantascha. And therefore this remembrance of Krishna is agha, ogha, haram, harim. Agha is sin, ogha is the influence of the reactions of those sins. Action and reaction. Performing sin and the reactions of the suffering which is caused by those sinful reactions. Haram, harim, that remembrance of Krishna is such that it prevents us from even performing sinful activity. And therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains that one always needs the association of devotees so that we are reminded of Krishna, and that remembrance of Krishna prevents us from performing 11 principal sins. When Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Braja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo. So Sarva Papebhyo means all kinds of sins. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur categorizes in 11 principal categories. The sins can be unlimited, but the categories are within this 11. And then he is explaining what is the first one. The first category of sin is violence. Violence to kill another living being. Violence towards other living beings. So then within that he gives, 3 sections. One is violence towards other men, violence towards animals, and violence towards demigods, which is, he says, destroying deities, destroying temple, violence to other kinds and forms of gods. And in history we have seen many people who have performed this kind of abominable activity by trying to destroy temples and deities and things like that. So what is the meaning of violence towards man? And he says that this is the greatest sin, and this violence is in increasing order towards human beings, brahmanas, parents, women, Vaishnavas, and Guru. The degree of reaction. And then we find in Bhagavatam Yudhishthir Maharaj repenting the killing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he was right in front of all the devotees, right in front of the entire palace of Hastinapur, in front of Krishna, Vyasdev. He was lamenting, thinking that I am responsible for this sin, for this crime, for killing of 64 crore soldiers. Vyasadhyai Ishware Hagyai Krishnena Adbhuta Karmana Prabobito Api Itihase. Vyasdev, Krishna, all of them, including the sages, were trying to convince Yudhishthir Maharaj, you are not at fault. But still he could not appreciate. He was thinking, yes, I am sinful because I am responsible for all of these killings. Someone approached Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, we see that people are throwing Bhagavad Gita in the dustbin. Prabhupada said, we are living in a society where people are throwing human fetuses in the dustbin. So is there any surprise that people have this kind of consciousness? And then there is violence towards animals, when one is controlled by tongue and indulges in killing of animals, like that. So therefore Prabhupada describes that previously charity was distribution of wealth. Prabhupada says, but in Kali Yuga, even if you distribute wealth, people will use the wealth to commit more sins. And therefore, a much better form of charity is distribution of prasadam, Krishna prasadam. One reporter asked Prabhupada that, Swamiji, we have heard that when Ram was in the forest, he was eating meat. Prabhupada said, Ram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can eat the whole universe, including you. So basically, the whole idea of meat eating is extremely sinful. And so Srila Prabhupada, he elaborately emphasized on distribution of Krishna prasadam. And therefore, even if we distribute Harinam, people may or may not appreciate. You distribute Gita, people may or may not appreciate. But you distribute prasadam, people do appreciate. And they continue appreciating. Even devotees who may lose taste for other aspects of Krishna consciousness, they never lose taste for this. I used to go for a college program, and for lecture, only 4 or 5 used to come. And for prasadam, 35-40 would come. So one day the kitchen was delayed in making prasad, so I told some other devotee, you bring the prasadam. I went ahead. When I went ahead and I entered the campus, usually 1 or 2 devotees would come to receive me. So when they looked at me and they were looking behind me, they were looking at my hands, and then they were looking really disturbed. And I said, क्या हो गया? बोले, प्रभु आप अकेले आए हैं आज. I said, what do you mean? I said, where is the prasad? I said, it's coming, don't worry. Aye. So that day I realized that my katha was not the visa, prasad was the visa for entering. So therefore, this is a major sin, taking away lives of other animals just to satisfy the tongue. And so, in the Srimad Bhagavatam it is described, there are various effects of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of the effects of hearing Bhagavatam is it cleanses the heart. Pravishta karnarandrena swanam bhava suroruham dhunoti shamalam Krishna salilasya yathasharat. Just like the rains purify the pond during, after the rainy season in autumn, the pond becomes completely crystal clear. Like that, salilasya yathasharat, like the autumnal season pond, the heart becomes purified by hearing about Krishna. Swanam bhava saroruham. The second kind of agha or sin is cruelty. Cruelty towards other human beings and cruelty towards animals. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains how this world is devoid of mercy. And so cruelty refers to dealings with others devoid of mercy. Like that. And therefore, in the 3rd canto, Lord Kapila explains to Mother Devahuti, Evam swabharana akalpam tat kalatradayas tatha nadriyante yatha purvam kinasha iva gojaram. In describing about description of adverse fruitive activities, he explains that evam swabharana akalpam, even human beings can become so selfish that they do not consider about others' needs. And tat kalatradayas tatha nadriyante, even one's own family members, when they see that someone is grown old and not useful anymore, na adriyante yatha purvam kinasha iva gojaram. And then one is treated like an old bull. And therefore, we find that even amongst animals, especially the bulls, when they grow a little older, they are slaughtered because they are considered to be useless. And therefore, this is a very important point, that cruelty towards human beings and cruelty towards animals is another aspect of sin, and we have to be extremely careful not to indulge in this kind of cruelty. And therefore people feel that whimsical activity is something which human beings are supposed to involve in. Somebody approached Prabhupada and, he was having a conversation with Prabhupada in Juhu, and he told Prabhupada, my favorite verse in the Bhagavad Gita is when Krishna tells Arjuna, Yathechasi tatha kuru. Whatever you like, you do. But what's before that and what's after that? If you just take that particular thing, different shlok for different folks. It doesn't work like that. So therefore, there are multiple conversations of Prabhupada where you will find that there are Christian priests who are trying to have a conversation with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada is telling them, Jesus Christ said, thou shalt not kill. And they want to change that and said, Swamiji, let's discuss another point. He says, no. Even one instruction if you are not able to follow, how we can discuss further topics? Our discussion on dharma will be on this, thou shalt not kill. So therefore, Bhagavatam is considered to be purifying in its effect, and one of the elements of Srimad Bhagavatam's hearing is Krishna enters through the heart. Shrinvata shraddhaya nityam grinatascha svacheshtitam kalena nati dirghena bhagavan vishate. Bhagavan actually enters into the heart and purifies us. So that is described here. Third kind of sin or agha is hypocrisy, or acts which are conducted deceitfully, either by habit or willingly or knowingly or whatever. And therefore, this kind of crooked dealings or deceitful dealings is also a kind of sin. When one's actions and one's intentions are not synchronous, not matching. Sripad Ramanujacharya, he had prasadam, and then he washed his hand in Kaveri. And when he washed his hand, some remnants of Mahaprasad which he had taken was eaten up by a fish. Immediately that fish got a 400 form, and right in front of all the disciples ascended to Vaikuntha in a spiritual airplane. And all the disciples were bewildered. They turned to Ramanuja and said, we are honoring your Mahaprasadam every day. Still we have 2 hands only. How come that fish, in spite of not doing any of the things which we are doing, got such a form? And Ramanuja said that one may get connected to the process, but when there is deceit, and when there is lack of absorption, and when one does not follow the process seriously and sincerely and commits offenses, then one may not get the same effect. So therefore you have to be careful like that. So therefore, this is a very important principle. Acts which are conducted deceitfully, it is filled with hypocrisy. Another aspect of sin which Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, so to overcome this, Srimad Bhagavatam explains that Bhagavatam itself is the Lord's incarnation to help us overcome the influence of the deceitful age of Kali Yuga. Krishne swadhamopagate dharma jnanadi vissa kalo nashta drishamesha purana arka. So Bhagavatam is Grantha-avatar, which has come to overcome the influence of the hypocrisy of this age of Kali. Then the fourth kind of sin is mental illusion. And within this, he categorizes 4 types. First, he says intoxication. Okay, intoxication. In that, he even goes into details. Alcohol, marijuana, opium, tobacco, betel nuts. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going into great detail because he's writing in the last century, so he knows that people in Kali Yuga will need specific interpretation. Otherwise, they'll create their own interpretation. And when Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, there was one devotee, and he asked Prabhupada that, Srila Prabhupada, if one is in Vrindavan and he indulges in meat eating, what will be his destination? Prabhupada said he will become a hog in Vrindavan. He said if someone indulges in illicit sex in Vrindavan, what will be his destination? Prabhupada said he will become a pigeon or a dog in Vrindavan. Then this devotee asked, Srila Prabhupada, if someone goes to the bank of Yamuna and smokes ganja, what will be his destination? Prabhupada said he'll become a hippie in San Francisco. And then Prabhupada said, you're sitting in Vrindavan, where is your mind? Rather than thinking how to absorb in Krishna, you are thinking all kinds of other things. So therefore, when someone has experience of intoxication, then sometimes those habits may come back again. The second kind of mental illusion is the 6 enemies. The 6 enemies or the anarthas, and each one of these Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Mad, Matsar has the capacity to create madness, to create an illusion like that. And it's very much possible. I was doing a program in Yeravada jail many years ago, and I met one prisoner. He was in yellow clothes, others were all in white. So I asked him, why are you dressed differently? He said, no, I have been chosen as the leader of everyone, and therefore I have got special privilege. And I said, what do you do? So he said, I am the in charge of a band. So inside there are many prisoners with musical talent. All of them are put in one prison house. And then we all practice all through the day, and in the evening we go out and perform in orchestras also. And we come back and we earn money also. So I am one of the most popular singers and players of music here. But I am feeling very sad. I said, why? He said, after 25 years of being in the jail, due to good conduct, they are decreasing my sentence and releasing me. So I said, you are feeling sad or happy? He said, I am feeling sad. Why? He said, because in my village everyone is, thinking I am a murderer and this and that. So they are not going to respect me. But here I am respected like anything. Because whenever I play music, everyone sits and listens to me. They appreciate me. So I am really feeling that I am going to lose this wonderful association where I am respected and I am honored. So he had got connected to a certain social situation, and he just felt this is reality. And that's how the conditioned soul gets trapped in a particular situation based on his false ego. And so the third kind of mental illusion is atheism. And atheism basically means to think how I am the supreme, like Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu had that feeling, yes tvaya manda bhagyokto madanyo jagadishvara, that I am the supreme. How can anyone be greater than me? Kvasav yadi sarvatra kasmat stambhena drishyate. If Lord is everywhere, is he within this pillar also? That was Hiranyakashipu's demand. So he could not accept anyone greater than himself. So that was his intoxication, his illusion. The fourth kind of illusion is laziness. So laziness means to think that, okay, what is the use of even working? Whatever has to come will come on its own. Forget acting for it, working for it. Like that. So therefore, these kinds of 4 intoxication, the anarthas within, atheism and laziness, all of these are actually also the 4th kind of sin which is mental illusion. So Bhagavatam recommends we can get relief from the frustration of experiencing little pleasure in response for doing great effort. And one of the biggest challenges we face in material world is we do a great degree of effort, we experience little pleasure. And therefore Bhagavatam says, Soham Ranam Kshulla Sukhaya Dukkham Mahadgatanam Viramayatasya Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam. That you do a great effort for Kshulla Sukhaya. And therefore, Pravartaye Bhagavatam, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam has been spoken to help the conditioned soul overcome this frustration and actually experience real joy. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains the fifth kind of sin or agha, which is lying. And lying is of different types. Verbal, right? Verbal means, speaking with the tongue. Various kinds of lying. The second is cheating religion. Third is cheating conduct, which is deceitful dealings. And fourth is prejudice or favoritism. To support an unjust party than the righteous side for selfish reasons. So these are the four kinds of sins which manifest, as part of the conditioned soul's conditioning. So therefore, if we want to have a relief from these material miseries, then Bhagavatam is recommending Ashesha Sanklesha Shamam Vidhatte Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare. When we hear about the Lord's glories, the true glories of the Lord overwhelm our heart and free us from the tendencies to bask in any of our false glories. Gunanuvada Shravanam Murare Kuta Punakim Paraga Sevaratir Atma Labdhas. Then we become completely satisfied. So this is the fifth kind of sin, which is lying. The sixth kind of sin is offering disrespect. Disrespect to three categories: disrespect to parents, disrespect to teachers, and disrespect to other superiors. And all of these three are very serious. And therefore, when Mahaprabhu, he was in dialogue with Ramananda Rai, Mahaprabhu took the position of a student. Prabhu kahe aage kah shunite paye sukhe apurvamrta nadi vahe tomar mukhe. And then Ramananda Rai actually spoke the samvada and had Mahaprabhu hear it. And Mahaprabhu told him, Tomar thane aila tomar mahima shuniya, tumi mora stutikara sannyasi janiya. Naturally you are respecting me because I am a sannyasi, but actually I want to hear from you. And if you glorify me, I cannot hear from you. So therefore, I want to be in the position of a student and accept you in the position of being a teacher. So that's Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood. And therefore, one of the forms of disrespect towards teacher is to disobey the orders, and also be careful to please with, one must be careful to please with polite and gracious conduct and not disobey the orders like that. And so Saraswati Thakur gives the example that disobey the orders does not also mean that one does not use his good sense to understand what is to be done and what is not to be done. And he says in the Upadesha Upakhyane, the disciple is there with the Guru. The Guru is riding on a horse. Disciple is carrying the horse, leading the horse. Suddenly the Guru's handkerchief falls. The disciple continues walking. So Guru turns to the disciple and said, hey, my handkerchief has fallen. You don't have sense to pick it up? Disciple says, my dear Gurudev, you never told me that when the handkerchief falls, we must pick it up. I never heard that from you before. Says, come on, it is common sense. Anything which falls has to be picked up and offered back and given. So the horse went ahead, and suddenly horse had churning in the stomach, passed stool. The disciple immediately picked it up, brought it to Guru. Said, for you. Guru became frustrated. He said, can't you understand that why you are picking up this stool? He said, you said whatever falls you can pick it up. So the Guru said, he is too stupid. Took a pen and paper, wrote down the whole list. When something falls, you must pick it up. Spectacles, handkerchief, danda, kamandalu, this, that. Gave whole list and gave. That only he can understand detailed instruction. Said, did you understand? Anything which is in this list, pick it up. Don't use your own brain. He went ahead. There was a speed breaker, and the horse went up and down. The Guru fell down. Disciple picked up the sheet. And then he started checking one after another. And he looked at the Guru and said, you are not there in this. So therefore that is also an insult. That we do not use our common sense to appreciate what exactly is the instruction being given. And therefore it's very important to appreciate that disrespect also means to feel that I am so great, that what I am doing is so great. And so Srila Prabhupada, he saw that one of his devotees is doing tremendous amount of preaching in certain countries. But he started feeling that, I am so empowered. And he came back to Vrindavan to spend some days before he went out for preaching. So Prabhupada called for him in the middle of the night. He told his servant, go and call this devotee. So this devotee, the servant went and called this devotee. And he was called to Prabhupada. And when he woke him up, he saw the timing is like 1 o'clock at night. And he was thinking, why is Prabhupada calling me at 1 o'clock? He got bewildered. He says, Prabhupada is calling you right now, the servant said. He went running to Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, how can I serve you? So Srila Prabhupada said, what were you doing? He said, Prabhupada, I was sleeping. Prabhupada said, why were you sleeping? He said, because I was working all day, I was very hard, I was very tired, so I was sleeping. Prabhupada said, I also worked hard all day. I am not sleeping, I am translating. Why were you sleeping? He said, Prabhupada, you are a Paramahamsa. I am an ordinary conditioned soul, sense gratifier. So naturally, I cannot do what you are able to do. Prabhupada said, why are you not a Paramahamsa? So he realized something is really wrong. He said, Prabhupada, what should I do? Prabhupada said, go back to sleep. He didn't say anything beyond this, but as he was going, he started thinking, what was behind this exchange? And then he realized that, okay, probably Prabhupada wanted to humble me and make me realize that the real cause of aparadha is apahata radha. Radha means satisfaction. Aparadha means diminishing satisfaction. When does satisfaction diminish? When the jiva loses internally the bhav of respect. Because the jiva is nitya das. So when the das bhav is there, then the radha or the respect will be, the satisfaction will be there. But internally when that changes, the the satisfaction changes to dissatisfaction. So aparadha literally means the experience of diminishing satisfaction. Like that. Prabhupada was going for a tour somewhere. So one lady, she was cooking for Prabhupada samosas. So Prabhupada entered the kitchen. And as she was packing, Prabhupada started taking out the samosa from the pack. It was for the journey. So Prabhupada picked up one samosa, ate it, said, oh, very good. Prabhupada picked up one more, he ate it. And as she was frying and putting in the pack, Prabhupada was eating. And she said, Prabhupada, this is for your journey. Prabhupada said, no, I like it. Even before the journey, he started eating. So suddenly, at that moment, she started thinking that, oh, looks like I am such a great cook that Prabhupada can't even resist and he's eating like anything. So some bhav overcame her and she told Prabhupada, Prabhupada, who's your favorite cook? Prabhupada said, myself. Because as soon as we do something positive, immediately the thought comes that, oh, Krishna has specially blessed me. And then that's from where the disrespect begins. So therefore, two types of leaders have left Krishna consciousness movement. Two types of people have left Krishna consciousness movement. Leaders who made mistakes and followers who indulged in fault finding. And both had difficulties in the movement. And therefore, we have to be very careful that we should not indulge in disrespect. And so Bhagavatam describes Yasyakila miva habis sumangalaihi vacho vimishra guna karma janmabhi. That Srimad Bhagavatam, it does three things. Prananti shumbhanti punanti vai. It animates, beautifies and purifies the entire world. Why Jagat? So the Acharyas asked this question, if it does for the whole Jagat, why not for an individual soul like us? Definitely the Bhagavatam can have that impact. Then the seventh kind of agha or sin is lust. And this is described in terms of three things: lust for money, lust for women, and lust for position. And therefore we have to be extremely careful. And Ajamil pastime describes Stambhayam atmanatmanam yavat sattvam yathashrutam na shashaka samadhatum mano madana vepitum. That Ajamil tried to control his mind and senses, but still he could not. He tried to remember all the previous instructions which he had received. Yavat sattvam yathashrutam, to his best capacity. Na shashaka samadhatum, but he could not control his mind. All of those instructions could not help him plug the influence of that lust within his heart. And therefore, tasmat sankirtanam vishnoho jagat mangalam amhasam mahatam api kauravya vidhi aikantika nishkritam. So the Ajamil pastime ends with this benediction, that when one indulges in Harinam Sankirtan, Jagat Mangalam, it purifies the entire world and purifies our consciousness. Mahatam api kauravya. So Prabhupada was talking to one professor in religion, and Prabhupada was mentioning about the glories of Harinam, and this professor started objecting, where in the Upanishads this Harinam is mentioned? I don't understand this. And then Prabhupada was like, he just gave that talk on the Nam, and this person was objecting. And then he started quoting some Upanishadic verse, some verse here, there. This person was objecting. And then Prabhupada was standing, and Prabhupada said, are you finished? He says, no. And he continued. Again objecting. Few more lines. Then Prabhupada again interjected, are you finished? He says, no. Then further objections he raised. And then Prabhupada finally with his raised voice said, are you finished? He said, yes. Prabhupada said, sit down then. So he sat down. And then Prabhupada started quoting from all kinds of scriptures, left, right and center, the glories of Harinam Sankirtan. And there was a podium, and Prabhupada was banging on the podium. And Prabhupada was hammering the shlokas. And this devotee was sharing this story, said that it appeared that this professor was like a nail and Prabhupada was like a hammer, and doom, 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 doom. The philosophy was being drilled down inside. And Prabhupada went on for 7 to 10 minutes non-stop. And then suddenly this professor raised his hand. Prabhupada said, what happened? He said, can we have kirtan? Just by Prabhupada's repeating all of these verses from the Shastra, it had an impact. So therefore, as far as the influence of lust is concerned, specifically the 6th canto, it begins by bringing in Ajamil pastime and then bringing in the glories of the holy name. That's the only way for this age. The 8th kind of agha or sin is selfishness. And selfishness basically means miserliness towards family and reluctance to indulge in any kind of charity. Like that. So, gruheshu kuta dharmeshu dukkha tantreshu atandrita. Kuruvan dukkha pratikaram sukhavan manyate grihi. So, one thinks that by putting all of this together, using my own plan making, I'll be really happy and satisfied in life. So, this miserliness or selfishness is a huge binding factor in the soul's consciousness. And the soul really feels entrapped within this consciousness that yes, I am in control of the situation, I am the doer, and I can plan everything for my pleasure. Like that. I remember many years ago, one very wealthy person, he approached me and he was sharing with me that I have so much money, so much wealth, it is like water in the ocean. He was straightforward telling me like this. I have so much money, it is like ocean water. But you know what? The ocean water is salty. And therefore ocean water does not quench the thirst. So whatever amount of money I make, I am still feeling thirsty. Because it is salty. But I see that you are chanting Hare Krishna. And this chanting of Hare Krishna is giving you an experience which is sweet. Like well water. It is sweet and deep. Please, can you give me a few drops of your well water? I said, of course, no problem. And why don't you give me a few drops of your ocean water? And then for next 6 months, I didn't see him at all. So when one thinks that yes, this is what I have, and I can be in total control of this, when one is inspired by swartha or selfishness, this results in miserliness. And this results in theft, arguments, and frustration. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains. So all endeavors for gaining material assets in this life is for personal benefit, and one forgets that God has sanctioned all of this for our welfare. The ninth kind of sin or agha is impurity. Impurity in body, in terms of clothes, bed, house. Second, impurity in mind, in terms of illusion and hatred. Impurity of place, different places where people are engaged in immorality. Impurity of time, like eclipse, the particular time when we are eating or sleeping, those are all considered impure. Impurity of objects, when a person is in a drunken state, or if he is in a state of total lust. So these are all considered to be impurities, and therefore we have to prevent and protect ourselves from these impure situations. The 10th kind of sin is conduct. And two kinds of conduct. One is to disregard the conduct of saints, and secondly to take up the conduct of foreigners in terms of associating with them for their habits and giving up all our principles of varnashram and following of the regulative principles. So therefore, this is a very important point, that if we disregard the conduct of the great souls and act whimsically, then again all of the seeds of sense gratification will sprout within the heart. And so we should understand that when we engage in the preaching mission, we are in contact with various people of various types of conduct. But the purpose of that interaction is not to be inspired by their conduct, but to share with them the proper conduct. And one of the devotees in New Zealand, he was from a Gaudiya Vaishnava family. His grandmother was initiated disciple and practicing all the principles and having prasad at home. But he always used to make fun of her. Hare, what is this? Always chanting Hare Krishna. And he could not understand the glories. So when he went to New Zealand for doing his PhD, at that time he saw so many other students. They are into philosophy. They are reading some books here and there. So he thought, oh, I should also do something. So he asked somebody and they said, Korean Buddhism is very good. So he started studying Korean Buddhism. And he started practicing some Korean Buddhism. Coming from Bengal, from Gaudiya Vaishnava family. So he was on the road one day and he met one book distributor lady. And the book distributor lady gave him Bhagavad Gita and started preaching to him about Gita. And he said, I am not interested in Gita. She said, you must be interested in meditation. He said, yeah, I am interested in meditation. So this Gita speaks about meditation. So then he asked her, okay, that's fine. I am practicing Korean Buddhism. What meditation you follow? And she said, I am following Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So he got totally bewildered. And he looked at that lady and said, which country are you from? And she said, Korea. He got the shock of his life. That here is someone from Korea who is practicing Gaudiya Vaishnavism. I am from Gaudiya family practicing Korean Buddhism. Took the Gita to his room, kept all the Korean Buddhism books in a locker, started practicing, and now he is initiated disciple of Devamrit Maharaj. In New Zealand. So therefore, when we interact, the purpose of interaction is not to become like that, but to inspire them. And to make sure that our conduct transforms others, not that we become changed by that. And the 11th and the last kind of sin described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur are destructive actions which are opposed to good work, false renunciation, preaching irreligion in the name of God, unjust war, and wasting time, money, material resources. All of this come under the ambit of destructive actions. So therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving a comprehensive description of the 11 types of sin which comes under the arena of the conditioned soul's activities: violence, cruelty, hypocrisy, mental illusion, lying, disrespect, lust, selfishness, impurity, conduct, and destructive actions. And why these are described in great detail? So that we understand what is agha, what is sin. And then, more important than that, we understand that the tendency to indulge in any of these 11 categories of sin will manifest first when we forget Krishna. And therefore, what is the kavacha or the insurance policy or the protection we need so that we never forget Krishna even for one moment? Vismartavyo na jata chit. Sarve vidhi nishedhatyur etayor eva kinkara. So therefore, to ensure that we never forget Krishna, we need association of devotees. And devotees help us in two ways. Smaranta, smarayantascha. As soon as we see the devotees, we remember Krishna. And sometimes even after seeing devotees, we are having negative thoughts towards them. But then smarayantascha, when other devotees speak in a way which helps us dispel our illusion, and then we are able to remember Krishna. Then mith agha ogha haram harim. Smarantas smarayantascha. Mitha agha ogha haram harim. So then we are able to forget all of these various tendencies to commit sin. And the agha, the sins and the reactions of those sins, ogha, haram, harim, that remembrance of Krishna, Hari's remembrance, smaran of Hari, becomes the instrument for agha, ogha, haram. And therefore, here we can see that the most important principle is that association of devotees. Because that association of devotees helps us invoke taste, mitaharati, mitahatushti, invoke satisfaction, invoke freedom from miseries. But not just invoke, not just create taste, we also need to maintain that taste. And to maintain that taste, we need to always remember Krishna. And to remember Krishna, we need the association of devotees to remind us. And when we are always reminded that we should remember Krishna, then we will be protected from the influence of sins and the reactions to sins. And that's the idea of this 11th canto, 3rd chapter, 31st verse. Smaranta smarayantascha mitho agha ogha haram harim bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya bibhrati utpulokam tanum. And then when we continue remembering, other kinds of transcendental ecstasies follow in due course of time, which we won't go into detail, because for us agha is more important than utpulokam tanum, than with the hairs standing on end. Because I have never experienced in 24 years any devotee coming to me and asking, why are my hair standing on end? I'm not able to understand that. It is disturbing my software programming, that as I am programming and then suddenly hairs are standing on end. And what do you recommend I should do so that I become less ecstatic? So generally the first 2 lines of the verse are the ones which we hear more, so I focused more on that. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.